The chamber hummed with ambient energy as beings from 12 different worlds gathered beneath the spires of the Galactic Council Hall. The air shimmered faintly, disturbed by the weight of judgment about to be cast on another emerging species. High above, holographic images flickered, landscapes, city grids, and behavioral feeds from Earth. The humans, as usual, were making fools of themselves. In the corner of the projection, two men danced shirtless in the snow while others laughed and filmed it on small, outdated devices. Councillor Threx of the Dravik Empire leaned back in his seat, armored claws tapping against the stone in lazy contempt. Flumbly, he muttered, a word the council had adopted to mean unfocused, emotionally erratic, unimpressively sentient. The term had come to define humanity after a decade of passive observation. They throw pies at each other for sport, Threx continued, nodding at another feed showing a group of children in a chaotic birthday party. Their weapons are chemical propellants. They still worship invisible sky figures. And they injure themselves performing stunts for digital approval. What possible threat could they pose? They are unpredictable, offered Councillor Sale of the Yuvan. His translucent form rippled with ambient thought. Emotion drives their logic. That is dangerous, in ways we cannot yet model. Threx snorted, a rasping metallic hiss. Emotion is a weakness. Predictability is strength. I could wipe their entire defense network with one transport-class warship. But you haven't, said Jory, the Tsurii representative. She adjusted the neural folds around her eyes, voice calm and slow. Because protocol forbids preemptive eradication unless confirmed hostility exists. And the humans, flumbly as they are, haven't started anything. Not yet. They don't need to, Threx growled. Give them time, and they'll stumble into the void with a match and bane half the quadrant trying to understand what fire is. A murmur of dark amusement passed through the chamber. Still, some among them shifted uneasily. A new feed lit the center display. Military exercises in a barren American desert. Soldiers in camo, crawling through sand. One man lay still, wrapped in burlap and dust, weapon extended like a limb of thought. A sniper. The camera zoomed in, capturing the steel in his eyes. Primitive, said Threx, but the word sounded slightly less confident. Primitive, echoed the chamber. Still, Sale tilted his head. That one. He does not think as others do. His mind closes when examined, like a sealed chamber with no light. Not even noise. Jory leaned forward. Are you suggesting mental shielding? No, this is different. He doesn't hide his thoughts. He silences them. Council silence fell like a weighted net. Then Threx broke it with a smack. Then let us test him. Let us test them. No aggression, Jory warned. The Accord forbids. A field exercise, Threx countered. A squad lands covertly on Earth. No contact with civilians. No death, unless provoked. Let's see what defense they muster. If they are as flumbly as you claim, we return with proof. And if they are not? Sale asked. Threx's smirk deepened. Then we'll recalibrate. The vote passed? Barely. A test squad of Dravik elites would be deployed in a remote mountain region under strict observation. No orbital support, no airstrikes, no planetary scans. Pew insertion, pew assessment. 2 days later, the black dropship coasted through Earth's upper atmosphere, scattering its cloak trail behind like stardust. 8 soldiers, each capable of dismantling a planetary sentry team, stood silently in the hold. They did not speak. They did not need to. They had seen the footage. The dancing, the shouting, the infantile displays of tribal power. They expected nothing more than a few hours of crawling through snow, planting beacons, and returning with their pride inflated. Humans would never know they were there. That, to the Dravik, was victory. 10,000 feet below, Mason Hale stirred from his cot. The cabin walls creaked as wind slithered through the pine trees. Outside, the Carpathian Mountains wore their white armor well. Clean, silent, vast. Mason's eyes blinked open without fanfare. No alarm, no phone. His body kept time better than anything digital ever had. He dressed in layers, gray, seamless, forgettable. A black coffee brewed itself in the corner as he slid open the gun case. A long-barreled rifle sat in velvet recess like an old friend waiting for conversation. He cleaned it even though it was already clean. He didn't need a reason. Out here, reason was a luxury. Mason moved through the trees like someone born of bark and frost. His perch was half a mile from the cabin, carved into the rock face, invisible unless you knew the precise coordinates. He didn't hunt anymore. Not officially, but routine mattered. Stillness mattered. Knowing what didn't belong mattered most. By mid-morning, something didn't. The birds were late. That was always the first sign. Their absence spoke louder than their song. He scanned the ridgeline. Something shimmered, a ripple in air, not heat, not wind. Movement with no form. He narrowed his eyes and watched. For an hour. 2. Didn't blink more than necessary. Didn't speak. Didn't guess. In the chamber far above Earth, Counselor Sale leaned forward as his neural tether lit with static. He frowned. What is it? Jory asked. Someone has noticed. Frex looked up. What do you mean? The sniper. His mind shifted, like steel sliding into place. He knows. The projection screen showed nothing unusual. Just trees. Snow. But at the edge of the frame, the barrel of a rifle slid forward like a snake's tongue. Back on Earth, Mason adjusted for wind. Slow breath. One eye closed. Finger pressure building. The shimmer on the ridge paused. Hesitated. He fired. The shot broke silence like a prophecy. The first impact was silent from orbit, but the squad felt it ripple through their bones. Dravik armor wasn't built for subtlety. It was built for war, conquest, precision. Yet as Vrex's head jerked backward and his body crumpled into the snow, the silence mocked their superiority. There'd be no sound, no warning, no trace. One moment he stood, scanning the pines. The next, he was still, dark fluid pooling beneath his cranium. Squad Commander Eric didn't blink. Cloaks up. Fen out. We're compromised. They obeyed instantly, forming a staggered sweep pattern. 6 remaining. 1 down. Their combat systems registered nothing. A hole in their data. A blank space. Eric crouched near the body. Clean penetration through the cranial plate. Not plasma. Not energy. A primitive round. Yet it had pierced alloy-tempered armor. He tapped his visor. Command, we've been engaged. Unknown hostile. Request observational analysis. The response was static. Then silence. Their link to orbit had been severed. Half a kilometer away, Mason adjusted the bolt and shifted 2 degrees to the west. He didn't celebrate. Didn't hesitate. 1 down. 5 scanning. Their gear worked like a synchronized machine. But machines made patterns. And patterns were prey. He exhaled slowly, eyes steady through the scope. They were bigger than him. Heavier. Faster. But they weren't calm. Not yet. They moved like soldiers unfamiliar with being hunted. The moment they lost one of their own, they lost the rhythm. Panic crept behind their tactics. He waited. Another moved into range, cautiously cresting a snowbound ridge. He was half visible for less than a second. That was enough. Second shot. Another fall. The squad broke formation. Eric cursed, in his language and then in 3 others. They are not civilians. This is not wildlife. We're being hunted. Move to defensive positions. The telepath, Syrian, dropped to a knee, his crest pulsing with thought radiance. I'll find the mind. No. Eric snapped, but it was too late. Syrian pushed his awareness outward, sweeping the snowy basin with invisible tendrils. He found nothing, then something. Cold. Not rage. Not fear. Not even purpose. Just silence. It reached back. Not a mind, but a void. A locked door with no keyhole. Syrian's thoughts slammed into it and shattered. He screamed and collapsed, convulsing in the snow. Eric grabbed him. Status. His mind has withdrawn, another replied. Is not dead, but is not here anymore. 5 left. No enemy in sight. 2 dead. 1 mentally crippled. Mason repositioned higher up the ridge. The shot was clean, the angle new. These creatures adapted quickly, but not fast enough. His heart rate never rose above resting. His fingers moved like memory. They weren't animals. They weren't human either. But they bled. And they bled red. He blinked, replaying the shimmer he'd seen just before the first kill. Some kind of optical camouflage. That explained the absence of birds. Wildlife fled from what it couldn't understand. So did Mason's instincts. Only they didn't flee. They calculated. He'd spent his adult life in shadows, taking shots no one else would dare. Targets who could vanish between politics and bloodlines. He had ghosted warlords in deserts and generals in jungles. He'd faced weapons humanity wasn't supposed to have yet. Nothing about this was unfamiliar, except the silence they brought. Back in the field, the remaining Dravaks tried not to show fear, but their movements told a different story. They no longer advanced. They circled tight, watching every angle, weapons raised. Eric activated a microdrone. It hovered upward, scanning for infrared signatures. The drone passed over trees, stones, cold air, then burst into static. He didn't need to see the bullet. He knew it had been destroyed. "This isn't a sniper," he said flatly. "It's a predator." Another Dravak turned too quickly and stepped over a buried ridge. A faint click beneath his foot was the last sound he heard before the mine detonated, throwing shrapnel into the sky. His armor absorbed some, but his internal systems fried. He dropped, sparking, twitching. Eric gritted his teeth. "Abort. We extract. Now." No response from orbit. His second-in-command muttered. "We're dark." Eric tapped his chest console and switched to emergency signal. "Council command. Operation has escalated. We have encountered lethal force. Not native wildlife. Not military. A single human combatant is eliminating us." Silence again. Only wind answered. They had no gods, but if they did, Eric might have prayed. Mason watched through his scope. His next shot could have ended it. But he paused. The leader, he assumed, was sending something, data, a signal. That was useful. Let them speak. Let them admit this happened. Let the sky know they'd failed. For a moment, he considered the implications. This wasn't a rogue drone or an experimental craft. This was contact. Intentional, armed, covert. And still, they had sent too few. He moved again, vanishing into snow and shadow. Eric's eyes scanned the tree line. He knew now what they'd brought themselves into. The humans weren't flumbly. They weren't erratic. They were focused in a way no model could predict. He turned to his squad. 3 left. 1 barely conscious. "We move at nightfall," he ordered. "We'll make for the evac point on foot. Until then, we do not engage. We do not move. We do not speak." Far above, the Council's remote probes recorded it all. No one in the chamber spoke. Threx watched the feed in rigid silence. Jury folded her hands, expression unreadable. Sale tilted his head again, as if hearing a new melody. "The predator," he said softly, "is awake." And Mason, sitting high on his ridge, rifle steady and breath calm, waited for them to try again. Dusk bled slowly across the mountain range, coating the snow in shades of bruised blue and ash gray. The shadows stretched long, offering false cover and temporary comfort. Eric crouched beneath a frost-laced overhang, his breath steaming inside his helmet. He reviewed the terrain for the 5th time. The evac point was 3 kilometers southwest, over 2 ridgelines and through dense, pine-choked lowlands. They had no satellite support, no orbital response, and no assurance that any step forward wouldn't end in death. He had led campaigns across dying worlds. He had never felt this small. Behind him, 2 squadmates sat rigid, silent. The third, the youngest, shifted nervously, eyes darting to every gust of wind and snapped twig. Syrian, the telepath, lay motionless, eyes open but unseeing, mouth slack. His mind had not returned. Eric made the decision without words. A full-speed, low-profile sprint. No signals, no lights, minimal gear. They would not win this confrontation. They could only escape it. They moved. Down the slope, Mason watched them emerge from their hole. His breath was quiet, heart calm. They had waited for the dark, thinking it would mask them. But darkness was his element. He had hunted men through moonless jungles and cities that never slept. The cold didn't bite him. The wind didn't speak to him. He was as much a part of the mountain now as the stone beneath his boots. He let them run. Through the scope, he marked each footfall, each error in posture. These weren't frightened rookies. These were elite. But elite didn't mean invincible. It meant predictable. And tonight, predictability meant death. The first one dropped 20 paces into the descent, caught mid-stride. No scream, just a snapped neck and a sudden fold into snow. The others didn't stop. They couldn't. Stopping meant offering themselves. Eric gritted his teeth as they sprinted, leaping over roots and ducking low branches. The forest closed around them like a living trap. He didn't know where the shot had come from. It was like trying to fight a shadow that never cast one. He activated thermal vision. Nothing. Just cold. Layers upon layers of ice and bark and death. Then another went down. His armor took the hit but failed to stop the momentum. The body flipped, slammed into a trunk, and slid lifeless into a snowdrift. Only Eric and the youngest remained. Mason shifted position. They were faster now, wild with fear. He adjusted elevation. No need for the kill shot yet. He needed the leader alive. He clipped the young one next. Non-fatal, a shot to the thigh. The Dravik soldier screamed and fell, writhing, trying to crawl even as blood froze on his armor. Eric spun, raised his weapon, but there was nothing. Only trees. Only night. His survival instinct screamed. He lifted the fallen soldier, slung him over his shoulder, and ran. He no longer cared about formation or concealment. He moved by desperation, not doctrine. Behind him, Mason did not pursue. Not yet. Eric reached the evac point, an exposed clearing near the edge of a frozen ravine. The shuttle wouldn't come. He knew that now. He laid the injured soldier down, rifle raised, breath coming in sharp bursts. No words, no thoughts, only anticipation. Minutes passed. The silence grew heavier. Then, from the tree line, Mason stepped forward. He moved like an echo, slow, deliberate, rifle lowered but ready. Snow barely crunched beneath his boots. He didn't wear armor. No glowing tech. Just layers of gray, eyes dark with calm. Eric raised his weapon, but Mason didn't flinch. He simply stayed, letting the stillness stretch until it hurt. "You knew?" Eric said finally, voice distorted by his mask. "You knew we were coming." Mason didn't answer. "You were waiting." Still silence. "Why not kill me?" Mason's voice, when it came, was low and even. "Because someone has to tell them what happened." Eric tightened his grip. "They won't believe me." "They don't have to." Eric wanted to shoot him. Wanted to wipe that human face off the map, this planet, this timeline. But he didn't. He saw the man clearly now. Not rage. Not pride. Not bloodlust. Just resolve. Hardened. Perfected. Terrifying. "What are you?" Eric asked, almost pleading. "You're not like the others." Mason looked past him, to the stars. "I'm what comes after the mistake." He turned and walked into the trees, vanishing between branches like a ghost released. Eric lowered his rifle. He didn't move for a long time. Above, aboard the council station, silence had turned to reckoning. The observers stood frozen, each frame of the feed echoing across the chamber like thunder. Threx's mouth was tight, no longer curled in mockery. Jory exhaled through her nose, measured and cool. Sales simply stared, eyes reflecting the now empty battlefield. "They sent 8, Jory said at last. "1 returns. Fewer than that, perhaps." The human didn't pursue the final kill, Sale noted. He let them leave. "A warning," Jory added. "Not a massacre. Not yet." Threx's hands curled into fists. "We must respond." "With what?" Sale asked. "His one man. Imagine 1,000 like him." Jory nodded slowly. "No need to imagine. They exist. They breed them in silence. They bury them in forests. They don't show them on the feeds we watch." The word flumbly no longer carried weight in the room. It had been replaced by something else. Something quiet, heavy, cold, respect, or fear. It was hard to tell. The debrief chamber aboard the Galactic Council's observation vessel was designed to project authority. Walls paneled in obsidian alloy, ambient light filtering through artificial starlight patterns. the silence almost reverent. Eric stood in the center, helmet held under one arm, uniform blooded, eyes hollow. 3 counselors watched him from an elevated platform, their expressions carved from stone. Frex broke the silence. You failed. Eric didn't flinch. We underestimated the human. Jory leaned forward. You misunderstand. This wasn't a failure of tactics. It was a failure of classification. You categorized their species as emotionally unstable, physically inferior, tactically erratic. They are, Threx growled. No, Eric said quietly. We are wrong. You were wrong. There was a flicker of discomfort among the council. Sale, ever the quiet one, adjusted a display terminal and projected a slowed feed of Mason's approach at the ravine. His gait, his eyes, the weapon at ease in his grip. This one did not simply survive, Sale said. He shaped the battlefield. Isolated, unsupported, using analog equipment. And restraint, Jory added. He did not finish the final target. He delivered a message. Frex scoffed. A single human. Nothing more. Eric's voice hardened. He hunted elite Reckon under silent terrain with no orbital visibility and no AI support. We never saw him. He didn't defend, he dominated. Sale turned. You believe he acted alone? I believe he chose to, Eric replied. The chamber fell silent again. No one asked the obvious question. If he hadn't, what then? Back on Earth, Mason stepped into a dim room inside a repurposed military outpost. Dust lined the corners. A fireplace crackled softly. A kettle whistled faintly. No fanfare, no flags. Just a chair, a table, and a woman with gray streaks in her braid, watching him with calm curiosity. You made it loud, she said, handing him tea. They needed to hay. Think they did. He nodded once. They listened. She stirred sugar into her mug. They'll come again. Mason Saturday, that was the point. She studied him a moment longer. You good? He didn't answer, just sipped. Outside, the world remained still. The snow held footprints that would vanish by morning. But underground, across the ranges, in forests too old for maps, systems stirred. Files were opened, protocols reviewed. Names, long erased from public record, resurfaced in black folders. Men and women like Mason existed, off the grid, out of sight, held in reserve. Each one had a purpose. Each one, when activated, became the myth that enemies whispered about and leaders denied. In orbit, the Council's internal channels burned with new directives. Recon programs were paused. Observation-only protocols reinstated. Probes were recalled from low-atmosphere positions. Civilian contact was strictly forbidden. Threx stormed from the chamber, armor gleaming, voice hot with denial. Jory watched him go. He will push back. Let him, Sale replied. The ones like Mason, he'll never find them in time. And if they rise together? Jory asked softly. They won't have to, Sale said. One was enough. Back on the mountain, the snow fell again, untouched. The predator had vanished into the pines, leaving no body, no signal, no echo. But the galaxy now knew. The humans were not flumbly. They were not chaotic. They were quiet. And in silence, they built legends.